OpenAI GPT-5 disaster. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. OpenAI released GPT-5. The previous version of the product was GPT-4, and OpenAI sort of had a product release disaster with GPT-5, and I'm going to explain what happened in this video. During the video, towards the end, I will present some breaking news. You could say good news for OpenAI users. So OpenAI GPT series tends to be the most expensive artificial intelligence large language model system you can subscribe to. Compared to Gemini by Google and Grok by X.com, the OpenAI GPT LLMs are expensive. Gemini and Grok, much more affordable. So for example, a 10-person company, assuming all 10 users are submitting questions to the AI system, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, Gemini and Grok are cheaper. So you would think that the GPT series would be, primo, would be the best, would offer the most features, would be the most reliable, the most efficient, the fastest response. So that's not happening with the new release. With GPT-5, OpenAI really made a mistake. The worst performance blunder they could have made. It's a router-driven problem. Basically, let me use an analogy. In Silicon Valley, the roads, the freeways are fairly congested. And on merge lanes, the lanes that merge onto the freeway, there are stoplights. The stoplights will turn green one car at a time to allow merging to occur in an orderly fashion. So the blunder that OpenAI made, it's very similar to what would happen to rush hour traffic if those stoplights didn't work. If you were trying to get on the freeway and the light stayed red the whole time, never turned green. That's what users are complaining about now. They're complaining about the switching, the routing not working, the router-driven problem. There's an internal logic they're calling, that OpenAI is calling a router. It's similar in function to an internet router. It chooses the model, text, image, or audio internally to handle your question. So when you use an AI system, you will submit a prompt, submit a query, ask a question. Normally, with GPT-4 and earlier, the question would be handled directly, immediately by the large language model. And now, with GPT-5, there's this router, this extra logic step. It's very similar to a stoplight on a busy freeway. And the purpose of this router, this extra logic that they put in front of the large language model, is to try to choose whether your question should be processed by the text or image or audio part of the large language model. And what users are saying is that this router is slow and error prone. It's an extra step it's very similar, again, to a stoplight merging onto the freeway. And it's creating too many problems for users, and they want the prior version of the product back. They want GPT-4 made available again. So it's the most expensive. OpenAI is the most expensive LLM to subscribe to. And they released GPT-5, and people want the previous version back. So that is a disaster. That's really a disaster. It's very similar to what happened with Windows 8. If you were around in those days, you will remember getting Windows 8 and saying, well, this is not working. I want the prior version that works. I've got to get work done. I need something that works. Let me go back to the most recent version, Windows 7. So that's kind of where we're at with ChatGPT. GPT-5 was released. It has this router, this internal logic that tries to choose the model, and the routing step has problems. It's sort of like those stoplights, the merging stoplights onto the freeway, all of a sudden not working, and a line of cars builds up that cannot get onto the freeway. So users are demanding a return to GPT-4. This includes the early access users who have been playing with GPT-5 for a while now, and it includes regular users, paying customers who have subscribed to GPT-4. They are demanding return to the prior version. It's very similar to what happened in Windows 8. Windows 7 was the go-to choice when the new version didn't work. Windows 8 was a failure. Windows 7, if you were shopping for a computer in those days, you would go to Costco. You would find brand new systems that Microsoft was making available with Windows 7. Windows 7 suddenly became available again in large numbers. So the question is, will GPT-5, with problems it has with this routing step, will it be pulled back as a product? So GPT-5, it's a product blunder. It's kind of a disaster, and it's also the most expensive. If you compare the usage cost of OpenAI's GPT series with Gemini and Grok, you will find that Google Gemini and Grok by X.com are much more affordable for companies. You can run examples with a 10-person company with the assumption that all 10 people in the company are submitting questions 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You will find that OpenAI sometimes is 10 times more expensive. And you cannot release disaster products when you're charging that much more than the competition. So the Windows 8 disaster. So what happened? Windows 8 came out. It was a failed product like GPT-5 is. Windows 7 returned, and Microsoft skipped over Windows 8 and 9 and skipped right to Windows 10. So we went from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Windows 8 was released. It was a blunder. It was a huge disaster. And Microsoft skipped over Windows 9. So we went from Windows 7 to Windows 9. So Microsoft is a large investor in OpenAI. They may be the largest investor, I think $15 billion. So, on the one hand, it's bad that OpenAI made this blunder, released GPT-5 without thoroughly testing it. I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like they released it. They rushed the release. They didn't test it thoroughly. They just wanted to put something out there. Let's get this over with sort of mentality. It's sort of good that they've got Microsoft as one of their biggest investors who might be able to steward them through, might be able to help OpenAI through this problem. In Microsoft's case, they replaced the CEO. Steve Ballmer was released eventually. And this was not instantaneous. Windows 7 to Windows 10, this took a while. It took time for Microsoft to figure out what had happened. And they, eventually Windows 10 came out and they released Steve Ballmer from the CEO role. So that was a good thing because Steve Ballmer, during the time he was CEO, it's like he did not have his mind on the company. It just felt like that. So maybe the same thing will happen with OpenAI. Sam Altman is the CEO. Microsoft is probably going to ask for an explanation. Why did we feel the need to release GPT-5 early when it really was not ready for prime time, when it was not ready to be released? Wouldn't it have been better to say that we're going to have to slip the release because we found some problems with the new? Instead, we just released GPT-5. It's a failed product. So here's the breaking news part of the video, because OpenAI is bringing back the prior version of the product because people missed it. Okay, so they would not miss the old version of the product if the new version was good, was better, was an improvement. So the only reason they are bringing back GPT-4, it's not because the only thing that customers miss about GPT-4 is that it worked. The responses were reasonable, they were efficient, they were timely. GPT-5 is having problems with this extra new logic, this routing step. Who knows what will become of that? But this is the breaking news today, okay? OpenAI has announced they're bringing back the prior version. Same thing that Microsoft did. This is a very quick response. Now, Microsoft reverted to Windows 7, but it wasn't that fast. It wasn't like one day later, because GPT-5 was just presented to the public in the last day or so, right? So all of a sudden they realize they've made a huge mistake to the degree that they're bringing back the prior version of the product. They have to. That's where they make revenue. If you're Microsoft and you've got a $15 billion investment, they have an incentive to tell OpenAI, bring back the prior model. That's what people are paying for. People are not going to pay for a broken product for GPT-5. So no one would miss GPT-4 if GPT-5 was a good product, a successful product. It's not. So they're going to, they're probably going to look internally. How did we release a product that was not ready? Shouldn't we have at least said we're going to slip on the deadline for releasing the new GPT-5? Why were they in such a rush? Maybe it's because of the competitors. If you do a comparison, a cost comparison, you will find that Gemini and Grok are much cheaper, and performance-wise, they're pretty good. They're pretty decent performers. So here are the top investors, okay, in OpenAI: Microsoft, SoftBank, Sequoia Capital, Andreessen Horowitz, Tiger Global. huge investors, huge. Those are those are huge investors. They will apply scrutiny to OpenAI, and they will ask, how did we get here? Why did we release a disaster product? We have to go back to GPT-4 because the newly released product is a dud and people will not pay for it. How did that happen? They're going to figure out how OpenAI got to the point where they decided to release a fouled up product. I mean, there's nothing wrong with introducing new logic, but it's got to work. It cannot make the product slower and unreliable. And that's what happened with the routing step, the routing logic added in GPT-5. It made the product less reliable and slower and inaccurate. So, one of the questions I would ask is, is the CEO, is the leadership team at OpenAI focused on something other than OpenAI? Do they have other startups they're involved in that may be distracting them? And the most important question I would ask is, what exists in the decision-making that allowed releasing of a product that people will not pay for, that has problems? What led to the decision to release a reputation-damaging product, GPT-5? I would look at that. I would see, is that fixable with the current leadership team? If not, they will have to change the leadership team. So those things are being looked at like right now as we speak. This was a development today. OpenAI is bringing back GPT-4. That just happened today. That's the breaking news. So right now, these big investors are drilling down and trying to figure out how the leadership team at OpenAI allowed this to happen. Do they need changes in the leadership team? I think the answer is yes. Whether or not there will be scapegoats, whether Sam Altman stays in that job, we don't know yet. But Ballmer got replaced, thank goodness, because the new CEO for Microsoft has done a fantastic job by comparison. And maybe that's needed at OpenAI. But again, Google Gemini or Grok, take a look at those. They're much more affordable. And for right now, you're stuck with a broken company. This company is going to be focused on these internal problems. They're not going to be focusing on products so much. I mean, if you think about it, they're bringing back GPT-4. That's a released product. They already know that product pretty well. They're not going to be working on a sudden re-release of GPT-5. It's got problems. They're going to have to figure out leadership. How did the leadership screw up? And then they will start making decisions. Do we just skip over GPT-5 and go to GPT-6 or 7? Sort of like what Microsoft did. Microsoft went from Windows 7, they skipped Windows 8, Windows 9, and they went to Windows 10. It's possible the same thing will happen inside OpenAI. If you have any questions about this, please post questions in the comments. I'll try to answer them. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.